What happens when a Hollywood star, known for her grace and charisma, faces a host who knows no boundaries? On the evening Zendaya appeared on The View, no one was prepared for what would become a television legend. The studio, buzzing with anticipation, was filled with excitement, but what unfolded next shocked everyone, from the audience to the producers behind the scenes. This wasn't just a conversation about a new film. It was a confrontation that revealed deep truths about respect, dignity, and the strength to stay true to oneself. The View studio sparkled under bright spotlights as a warm wave of applause swept through the room when Zendaya, dressed in an elegant cream suit, stepped onto the stage. Her smile was effortless, her stride confident but not arrogant. The audience, mostly women, erupted in cheers as she waved and took her seat across from the hosts. Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and Sunny Hostin smiled, exchanging light banter about Zendaya's new film, a highly anticipated drama already generating buzz among critics. "Zendaya, you look stunning, as always," Sarah Haynes began, her voice brimming with genuine admiration. "Tell us about this film. Rumor has it, it's your best project yet." Zendaya smiled modestly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Thank you, Sarah. This film is special to me. It's a story about humanity, about battling personal demons, and I hope audiences feel it as deeply as I did while filming." The atmosphere was warm, almost familial. Cameras hummed, gliding along their tracks, and producers behind the glass wall nodded to each other, pleased with the start. The audience murmured softly, some whispered to their neighbors, others pulled out phones to capture the moment. But a subtle tension hung in the air. Joy Behar, known for her sharp tongue, sat with a faint smile that hinted at something more than a friendly chat. The conversation flowed smoothly until Joy leaned forward, her eyes narrowing, her voice taking on a familiar sarcastic edge. "Zendaya, listen, you're an icon for the younger generation, right? All these awards, this charisma. But here's what I want to ask. Do you really believe in all this authenticity you're selling? Or is it just another Hollywood mask?" The question hung in the air like a bolt of lightning. The audience froze. A few gasped quietly. The camera swiveled sharply to Zendaya, capturing her reaction. Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes narrowed slightly, a subtle sign she felt the jab. "Joy, I always try to be myself," Zendaya replied, her voice calm but firm. "Hollywood has plenty of masks, that's true, but I believe authenticity resonates with people. My film is about being real, about not being afraid to be vulnerable." Sarah Haynes let out a nervous laugh, trying to diffuse the tension. "Oh, I'm sure the audience will feel that. Zendaya, tell us about." But Joy cut her off, her voice sharpening. "Vulnerability, you say? Interesting. Because I've heard you avoid tough topics in your interviews. You know, all this talk about mental health you do so well in your roles. Are you really that open, or is it just playing to the crowd?" The studio fell silent. Sunny Hostin shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her fingers tightening around her pen. Whoopi Goldberg shot a quick glance at Joy but stayed quiet. The audience, which had been buzzing with excitement moments ago, now sat holding their breath. A producer behind the glass gestured frantically to the camera operator to keep the shot on Zendaya. Zendaya took a slow breath, her hands on her lap clenching slightly. "Joy, I don't think mental health is a topic for casual conversation," she said, her voice steady but with a steely edge. "I talk about it in my roles because I believe art can help people. But my personal life? That's not for public dissection." The audience broke into soft applause, but Joy didn't back down. Her smile grew sharper. "Oh, come on, Zendaya, don't hide behind art. You know people want to know who you really are. You promote these ideas, but do you actually live them? Or are you just another star using vulnerability for PR?" Joy's words cut like a knife. Zendaya leaned forward, her eyes blazing, but she still held her composure. "Joy, I'm not here to prove to you or anyone else who I am. My work speaks for itself. And if you think mental health is something that can be used for PR, maybe you're the one who doesn't understand what it's about." The silence in the studio was deafening. Someone in the back gasped, and another whispered, Wow, she said that. Sarah Haynes tried to intervene. Okay, let's talk about the film, I think. But her voice was lost in the mounting tension. Joy, however, pressed on. She leaned back in her chair, her smile almost mocking. Oh, I understand, Zendaya. But you know, when you're in the spotlight, people have a right to know if you're real. You're not just an actress, you're a brand. And that brand sells a story of honesty. But are you honest with us? With yourself? The words were like a slap. Cameras hummed, capturing every moment. Zendaya pressed her lips together, her fingers trembling, but she held her ground. The audience was divided. Some looked at her with sympathy, others with curiosity, pulling out phones to record the moment. Producers behind the scenes exchanged panicked glances. The show was spiraling out of control. Joy, Zendaya said, her voice quieter but more intense. I don't owe you or anyone an explanation of who I am. My honesty is in my work, in how I live, how I treat people. And you? Are you using this platform to tear people down for ratings? Is that your honesty? The audience erupted in applause, but the tension only grew. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Whoopi Goldberg finally stepped in. All right, let's take a break, she said, her voice calm but firm. We'll be right back after the commercial. The cameras pulled back, the lights dimmed, but the studio buzzed with emotion. Zendaya sat, her fists clenched, her gaze fixed somewhere in the distance. Joy adjusted her notes, her face unreadable. The audience whispered, and producers behind the glass were already preparing for the moment to go viral. What will happen after the break? Will Zendaya maintain her dignity? Will Joy push the provocation further? Find out in the second part of this story that made television history. As the commercial break ended, the spotlights flared back to life, flooding the View studio with bright light. The audience, still buzzing with whispers and hushed comments, fell silent as the cameras returned to the hosts and Zendaya. The atmosphere was electric, like the calm before a storm. Zendaya sat with her back straight, her hands resting calmly on her lap, but her eyes burned with a mix of dignity and restrained anger. Joy Behar, on the other hand, looked confident, her smile sharp as a blade, her notes lying carelessly in front of her as if she already knew where she'd steer the conversation. Whoopi Goldberg, sensing the tension, tried to steer the show back to safer ground. All right, we're back, and we're here with Zendaya, talking about her new film. Come on, Zendaya, tell us about your role. What inspired you? Her voice was warm but carried a hint of desperation, as if pleading for everyone to forget the previous segment. Zendaya nodded, her smile polite but restrained. Thank you, Whoopi. My role is about grappling with inner fears, about finding the strength to move forward even when the world is against you. I think a lot of people can relate to that. The audience clapped softly, but Joy didn't let the moment settle. She leaned forward, her voice cutting through the silence. You know, Zendaya, that all sounds very nice, but let's be real. You're young, successful, everyone loves you. Don't you think your inner fears are just privileged problems? There are people out there truly suffering, and you're here playing at vulnerability for the cameras. The studio froze again. Sarah Haynes flinched, her fingers tightening around her water glass. Sunny Hostin let out a quiet sigh, her eyes dropping. The cameras hummed, capturing every move, and producers behind the glass exchanged frantic gestures. One held a phone, likely preparing for the inevitable social media storm. The audience was split, some whispered in outrage, others nodded as if agreeing with Joy. Zendaya slowly turned her head toward Joy, her eyes narrowing, but she still held her composure. Joy, I don't claim my problems are bigger than anyone else's, she said, her voice quiet but piercing. But I know everyone fights their own battles. And if I can use my platform to show that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to seek help, then I think that matters. Joy, however, didn't back down. Her smile grew more mocking. Oh, come on, Zendaya. You know people are tired of stars pretending they're normal. You don't go to therapy like regular people, do you? You're a star, living in your perfect world. Why not be honest and admit this is all just a story for your fans? The words hit like a punch. The audience gasped, and someone in the back stood, holding up a phone to record the moment. Zendaya clenched her fists, her jaw tightening, her eyes blazing. She slowly rose from her chair, her movements calm but brimming with strength. The studio fell into a deafening silence, broken only by the hum of cameras and the click of a microphone. "Joy," Zendaya said, her voice trembling with emotion but unwavering. "I don't know why you think you have the right to judge my life or my experiences. I don't pretend to know everything about suffering. But I know what it's like to fight fears that keep you up at night. I know what it's like to feel like you can't breathe but still have to smile for the cameras. And I know that when I talk about it, someone in this audience, someone at home watching, feels like they're not alone." The audience erupted in applause, but Zendaya raised her hand, asking for silence. She looked directly at Joy, her eyes burning. "You can mock me, you can call it PR. But I won't let you or anyone else diminish what I'm trying to do. Mental health isn't a joke. It's not a privileged problem. It's a reality for millions of people. And if you think your platform gives you the right to tear others down, maybe you should reflect on your own honesty." The studio exploded in cheers. Some shouted, "Bravo!" while others wiped away tears. Sarah Haynes looked stunned, her hands trembling as she tried to join the applause. Whoopi Goldberg nodded, her face full of respect. Joy sat silently, her smile gone, her hands nervously clutching her notes. The producers behind the glass looked like their world had just turned upside down. One was already typing a message, likely preparing for the viral explosion online. Zendaya turned to the audience, her voice softening but still strong. "I'm not here to argue or prove anything. I'm here to tell you, if you're struggling, if you feel like you can't cope, reach out for help. You're not alone. And don't let anyone make you feel less important." She turned, her heels clicking on the floor, and without another word, walked out of the studio. The door closed behind her with a quiet thud, but it echoed like thunder. The studio remained silent, only the faint hum of cameras breaking the stillness. Joy sat, lips pressed together, her face unreadable but her eyes betraying a mix of anger, embarrassment, and perhaps a hint of shame. Whoopi Goldberg quickly took the floor, trying to salvage the show. "All right, that was a moment. We'll be back after a short break to discuss this." The audience buzzed, people pulling out phones as posts began flooding social media. "Zendaya just destroyed Joy Behar on The View. That was epic." Clips of her speech spread like wildfire, racking up millions of views in minutes. The hashtag Zendaya Speaks became the #1 trend, with opinions divided. Some accused Joy of cruelty, others argued she was just doing her job. This moment on The View became one of the most talked about in the show's history. Media outlets dissected every word of Zendaya's speech, quoting it in articles about mental health and respect for personal boundaries. Some criticized Joy for crossing a line, while others felt she was trying to spark an honest conversation. Zendaya's reputation only grew stronger. She was hailed as a voice of a generation, and her film gained even more attention. But the question remains, who was right in this conflict? Did Zendaya do the right thing by walking out? Did Joy have the right to ask such pointed questions? And most importantly, can we use our platforms to uplift others rather than tear them down? Share your thoughts in the comments and join the discussion. This story is far from over.